He was a very complex guy, very talented, very, very thoughtful. He had great faith in what humanity could accomplish.
He had a wonderful, truly uplifting sense of where we could go.
Back in the 1960s, Rodenbery started out as a television writer at a time when humanity was in turmoil.
The 1960s were a very, very special time. They were a time where everywhere you looked, people were pushing the envelope. In art, in music, in politics, in science, technology, people were just reaching for the extremes and pushing the limits. And certainly, it was a painful decade. It was a decade of 3 political assassinations, and it was extraordinarily painful to watch African Americans and what they had to go through to gain basic rights. But it was also a decade where we leapt off the planet. The moment that John Kennedy said on May 25th, 1961, "We are going to the moon. We're going to send a human to the moon, and we're going to bring him back safely to Earth." And we could imagine for ourselves, as a result of that one proclamation, a future of limitless possibilities.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the kind of thinking that was going on, and this became the ruminations of Gene Roddenberry, which eventually turned into Star Trek.
I think what made Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future different than the other type of science fiction that was around in the 60s was that he had a very positive view of mankind. He saw the future as a place of endless possibilities.
Unlike Star Wars, which is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Star Trek is us, and Star Trek is our future. So the idea of having a vision, though obviously fantasy, but the idea of seeing a vision of our future, hundreds of years from now, what might we be doing, and who might we be doing it with? And there's something inherently optimistic about that.
You know, one of the things we say about Star Trek is that the future is now, and that this isn't just some outlandish fantasy land. This is a possible future of our planet if we can muster it.
When we were making the series, there was a very successful idea was being explored in books and movies that astronauts who had come to Earth from some other planet and built the Sphinx and built the pyramids. Gene became very angry at that idea. He said that stuff wasn't created by anything but human beings. That's the great accomplishment of humans that we're looking at and talking about. He felt the human potential was gigantic, was enormous, and that's what he was trying to capture in the Star Trek series.
Star Trek is a manifestation and a demonstration of his future vision, which is that problems would be solved, that there would be no more war, and that it was essentially a vision of human perfectibility.
And there wasn't a catch. It wasn't like Logan's Run, where it's like, oh, this is an awesome future, except we kill everybody on their 21st birthday. So, you know, the idea that that world presents a future that is actually a good future, I think people look at and say, that would be nice if we were exploring in the future as opposed to at war in the future.
And here comes this television show that says, hey, the future can be a better place if we work together, if we allow ourselves to befriend each other.
One of my favorite things about what he did is that he saw a time when working together was not only critical, but natural. The diversity of collaboration, the irrelevance of race, you know, or species. That the idea that we could collaborate with people that were not at first glance like us. This group of characters that essentially had drawing room scenes where they would be on the bridge debating how are we going to deal with a certain situation. And each character had a very distinct point of view and a real value.
If Mr. Sulu is able to maneuver us into position, I can beam aboard Nero's ship, steal back the black hole device, and if possible, bring back Captain Pike.
I won't allow you to do that, Mr. Spock.
Pretty prescient to sort of know that, see that, and then get it on national television, you know, in 1966.
Think about, you know, Here you have a cast that is interracial. You have women that are making decisions back at a time where that just wasn't a normal thing.
The reason that we're sitting here today talking about Star Trek is because it resonates, and the only reason it resonates is because it was about something real. It wasn't just a fantasy. It was very much about who we are now, extrapolated, to the future.
And by pushing the envelope, by asking the next question, which is at the heart of science fiction, Rodenbery and all the writers of Star Trek were able to make Trek not just interesting, but interesting science fiction.
In science, as opposed to science fiction, you certainly need the ability to imagine, but there you are constrained by facts.
Science fiction probably has questionable, at best, science. I don't think that ever matters. If most writers had relied on proper science to tell their stories, that most great stories wouldn't have been told.
I think it provides a forum for our imaginations to just let them run wild.
The ideas that Mr. Rodenbery had were so powerful that he felt that science can catch up to him.
And as we slowly start seeing things like the ability to move material from one place to another, to reshape matter, the more we see that he really was a visionary in ways.
And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with who are in the space program who literally can point to Star Trek as the reason that they do what they do. The cliche now of, to go boldly go where no man's gone before, it's an incredibly powerful idea, that idea of, going to the scary unknown and what is out there, what is beyond our knowledge.
And I think it is because it speaks so strongly to our biological imperative to explore. It conveys an evolutionary advantage to us to be inquisitive creatures, to explore.
We're going to need science to survive, for the Earth to continue functioning, ultimately. We're going to need science to leave the Earth.
It's not unreasonable to say that 200 years from now we'll have bases on the moon, we'll have bases on Mars. In the space exploration business, we're once again testing the concept, the notion to truly be a spacefaring civilization.
Hopefully we're going to get to the point where we can explore space. Hopefully we get to the point where we find out that we're not alone out there and that there's other people potentially rooting for us. I'd like to think there's a Federation watching us right now, waiting for us to get advanced enough.
That we happen to be working on a movie that was inspired by this belief in humanity. And that was something that in the 60s was a reaction, I think, to the world that he lived in. And I think that it is something that is as applicable today, certainly as it was then.
I hope when people watch this movie, they remember that the year that this movie came out is the 40th anniversary of our first moon landing, 40th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. And I hope they're reminded of what we once did, and they're inspired to think about that again. I mean, what could be better than to get people excited about this again than a new edition of Star Trek?